and just want to say a huge thank you to you all for coming to Sleepout tonight. It's amazing to see all the leaders in business in Kent all coming together to support Porchlight and the Amber Foundation. So thank you very much for coming this evening. You will all have seen that in the last year, or the last 2 years, homelessness is very much on the rise due to cost of living, rental increases, Section 21s where people are being told to leave their homes and actually can't afford to go and stay anywhere else, because a lot of the time landlords take the deposit as well. I am based in London, so you can see a lot of homelessness on the streets in London, to the point now it's getting to where it was in the 70s, where there are now tents being pitched on pavements outside of shops. So we are in a crisis point for homelessness, which Porchlight and Amber Foundation know as well, to where we are right now. With CEO Sleepout, we raise funds for small charities, and we had our 10-year anniversary last year. In 10 years, we've raised 4.4 million. We've had over 6,000 people sleeping out, and we've helped over 200 small charities. So we're really, really proud of what we've done. Also, last year we raised £830,000 last year, which is our highest total to date. So tonight you're here to hear from Porchlight and also to hear from the Amber Foundation about the amazing work that they do for the homeless, and also in this area in Kent as well, which is phenomenal work. So I'm actually going to introduce Adam Colthorpe, who is the Director of Development and Innovation at Porchlight.
Hi everyone. Firstly, I'd just like to say a massive thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come here tonight to give up one night of your comfort. It is just one night though, and actually the people who we're supporting have to do this day after day after day. It's a growing problem, and we know that with the state of the finances of local government, with funding cuts, with donations, it's a difficult challenge. It's a difficult balance for everyone to make. But actually it's not just about the fundraising that you're doing tonight, it's also about raising awareness. We are all in a much more fortunate position to be able to sort of tap into our networks, to be able to raise awareness, to be able to have those conversations. Poverty, health, homelessness, mental health, these are all challenges that come together. So we might be focused on sleeping rough tonight, but actually there's much more broad issues that have to be tackled in order to help people have that kind of sustainable, safe home. So massive thank you to you all, and thank you for your fundraising, thank you for raising awareness, but this is the first step. When we leave here tomorrow, hopefully you'll have a small amount of understanding, some greater empathy for the challenges that the people who we support are facing. So please take the experience tonight and take it into your lives, take it into your workplaces and talk about it. Raise that conversation, get more people to understand that many of us are just 1 or 2 paychecks away from what could be homelessness for us and our families. But I hope that you do get to see tonight, I say that small bit of what people experience, but also I hope that you see it as a positive experience, that we've all come together, we've all got this shared cause or shared purpose. So I just want to say a massive thank you to you.
I've got a short presentation, hopefully it won't send you to sleep too early. 2 seconds and I'll be back with you. My previous background was law enforcement, hence the modern slavery aspect. What I've come to present today is to try and give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour around what modern slavery is. I train internally and externally. My experience is it's something that people tend to think doesn't actually happen in their communities where they live. Actually, I can assure you it does. Every area that you live, if it's Kent, I would have worked on a case. We've had 3 or 4 just this week of quite a serious nature. So hopefully we'll give you a bit of information just on what the subject is. Hopefully it's something you might be able to feed into. Hopefully you'll see some of the cases that we've helped and safeguarded, and how some of this money that you're raising very kindly tonight goes into protecting vulnerable people. So hopefully this will work. There we go. I'm just going to give you a little bit of information around what it is. Most people, professionals included, don't always know what modern slavery, human trafficking is. There's a massive misconception. It's just foreign nationals, European nationals coming to England, whereas actually the trafficking element is much more simplistic. If I was to move someone from across the room with an exploitative purpose, it can be as simple as that. So it's trying to get people to have it on their radar. I'm not going to train you tonight, don't worry, it's not going to be too in-depth, but I'm going to give you some information so that if you do see anything, just say you could potentially reach out to some organisations. You know, you could be that first cog in a big wheel to try and potentially save someone, or at least, you know, put it on someone's radar so they could look to try and help. I put a little warning. I'm really desensitised to the subject matter, having been client-facing for over a decade with people that have experienced horrific things from physical torture to morally grey. There is a photo of one of our clients that experienced an injury that I've put up there. If no one wants to see it, absolutely, I'll tell you when it's going to go up and then I'll remove it so you don't have to look at it. But I like to use real-life cases because that is the reality that we work within. Okay, I don't know if everyone can see that because it's a bit skew-whiff on there, but has everyone got Netflix? Has anyone seen Squid Games? Yeah. Squid Games, the underlying aspects of that is organ harvesting, which we don't, thankfully, we don't experience at Homelessness. However, that is part of modern slavery. There's loads of things out there in the public domain. Another one on Netflix is Seaspiracy, which is to do with sustainable fishing, but it's all organised crime groups that are doing the same, like the fishing, the drug trafficking, people trafficking and arm trafficking. It's just money. And if you can get your head around the fact that it's just money, you'll understand how people can do this to one another. It's pure and simply that is the driving factor. Most people, when you say modern slavery, think of the old transatlantic slave trade, So the physical constraints around the wrists, around the ankles, was actually, just like in things like domestic abuse, the control is much more subtle. Coercion, there's duress, people have things imposed upon them that make them act in a certain way, so they don't actually articulate what's actually going on. So that's how, as a business model, I think is the next slide. Organised crime groups, most people would have seen Line of Duty, I imagine, so OCGs. So OCGs are criminal businesses, and the ones that, if you can see the slide, these are the ones Kent and Essex Police, Serious Organised Crime Directorate investigate in terms of trying to make money out of people or commit criminality to make money. And the top three currently are drug supply, which county lines, most people will have heard the term county lines, organised drug supply. It's just a way of making money, but often they target vulnerable people and adults, especially our cohort of people. If they have a substance misuse problem or an addiction, that can be used against people to manipulate them. We see it massively. Trafficking and slavery is the second most, the highest, I guess, of commercial gain for businesses in Kent and Essex at the moment, and it's coming up because it's less risk. If you have a drug, the police take the drug, they don't give that back to you, that's gone. If you've got a person you can sell and sell as a business model, you can just make more money. So organised crime groups are switching to just use people, and it's just a much better way of them making money. And firearms is the last one. Modern slavery, as a term, it's quite an umbrella term. It's defined in the Care Act, so I'm not going to try and educate people in that sense, but it's something we struggle with because we try and get social services or Kent County Council to assist and help with cases. But it's defined in legislation as anyone who's suffering abuse and neglect, which is also the definition of modern slavery. So if you were to try and get someone some assistance from an adult social services referral, you should be able to get some assistance, but we do struggle with that, and it's something we're doing some educational work with social services and other partners to try and help. But slavery is concerned with slavery, which is where people exercise ownership of another person. We see it in a lot of labour exploitation settings, for example. Servitude, which is where people sometimes are unfortunately kept as domestic slaves in premises, so everyone's seen the Mo Farah case. Similar to that, we've had two of those cases in Kent the last couple of weeks that I've been dealing with in Tunbridge and Tunbridge Wells. They're more prevalent than you would probably expect because they're not, unless they hit the news, people don't get to hear about it. But actually people will exploit people for their own gain in that setting. Forced and compulsory labour. Our clients would bite your hand off for some cash in hand work if you were to offer them a solution to the problems that they're facing. And cash in hand work at best is probably morally great, but actually we've seen some really horrific cases. In fact, I was chatting to a gentleman in the break. We had someone working for 13p an hour, and they thought that was okay. So just because you accept what your salary is, everyone has their own acceptable norm, and people will manipulate that for their own gain. And human trafficking, as I mentioned, is just the travel, and that's how they use the legislation for county lines, because people are made to traffic the drug, traffic the money, and traffic people, and so they use the legislation in that, but it's just the movement, but it confuses people because the term implies it's going across county or cross borders, for example. Most people will be aware of the Rotherham case, Rochdale. We had a case exactly like that, same sort of methodology, if you like. So we had a white British female that was being exploited by Asian males, and we were really fortuitous to identify the case because they were in a day centre. I won't say where it was, but it was in Kent. And a volunteer overheard a Good Samaritan that brought her to the day centre, and his words were that when he gets her back to the property, he was paying for her to stay, and it was his turn on her. That information was taken into the team. Thankfully, they'd all been trained. They understood what potentially was going on. They had a conversation with the female, and she disclosed that she was being sexually exploited. And because she had a drink and drug addiction that was being used against her, they were grooming her, they were moving her, which is the trafficking element, and she was unfortunately being raped and being made to do loads of sexual aspects to loads of different people. That gave us a good platform to obviously do some work with some partners and set up Kent's only modern slavery partnership, which is running in Kent at the moment. It's just to give you an example, these are cases, and sexual exploitation is not bespoke to females. We've had male cases as well. We had a case in a different part of Kent, again I won't name where it was. A 20-year-old male had met 2 other males on a dating app. He was really worried that someone was going to judge his sexuality, which was completely irrelevant to what happened to him. But because he was so worried, he just didn't really want to articulate the detail, but he had been groomed on crystal meth, crack cocaine, he'd been taken around multiple farms, and he had been raped and sexually abused and other things of a serious nature. Obviously safeguarding concerns because he mentioned a gun. But the 2 people that groomed him both worked for the NHS. So just to show you, there's no stereotypical image of a perpetrator or a victim, which is why it's really important to have an open mind. There's good and bad everywhere. It's just to highlight, most people think sexual exploitation is bespoke to women, but actually, unfortunately, it's not the case. It's literally, it doesn't discriminate. We've had people dress up as rough sleepers from organised crime groups to infiltrate winter night shelters, to recruit people, to exploit them for labour. We had a case where a GP had a live-in slave working for them, earning about £8 a day, turned up in a winter night shelter because they were fleeing that situation, trying to get similar work that was exploitative. GP, obviously rightly so, is a very safe sector, but it just depends on the circumstances, or maybe there might be some cultural connotations, for example, but actually we've had a lot of cases of a very serious nature, so it's just to try and put it on your radar in terms of the money that you're raising tonight. Thankfully you're giving up your time to help us. Goes a long way for us to find these types of cases, to help these types of cases, because they don't have a voice generally. We're the eyes and ears out there. Quite often the first people they'll see, they might not trust their probation worker or their police officer that they're speaking to, so it's just to try and highlight the cases. I'm conscious of time. We've had loads of county line cases, literally inundated, from a young age to an old age, in every part of Kent that we work in, which is most parts. I've never been to a car wash in a professional capacity where it's not been dodgy in some way. Most people will go, not Sainsbury's though. Mine works at Sainsbury's or Asda or Tesco. They're just getting the land rent. They're not there responsible for the workers' rights. So they just take the money, the royalties, and they're not checking on the welfare of the people. So please can have a conversation. I'll bore you with car washes. But there is an app you can download if you want to. It's called the Safe Car Wash app, and it'll ask you all the pertinent questions when they're there. Farms, we're a very rural county. You know, it's quite seasonal, but we had people brought over here to be exploited, unfortunately, on farms. I'm not going to go into all of them, loads of places. We've had so many sectors, and it may be that some of the sectors you potentially have worked in, or you work in, or you interconnect with, but anywhere where that can be manipulated, people are manipulating those circumstances for their own gain. Just some sensational figures, just from the National Crime Agency. Just pick out a couple. You can purchase a baby from India for £40. You can get someone to be sold for sexual exploitation for £2,000 if you know the right people. I consulted on a case about 12 months ago where a 2.5-month-old baby girl was sourced for sexual exploitation. And if you can get your head around the fact that it's just money, you'll understand how that can work. I've got 2 young girls, so it was quite a hard one to listen to. But if you can actually just think money is the driving factor, someone will go and source it for them. So please, just it's a thing, it's a massive thing. It's as prevalent as other safeguarding concerns like domestic abuse, but actually it's just so underreported, people don't know it's going on. We're really lucky, we give people a voice in this type of setting. We're identifying it with safeguarded people. And our figures are quite high, you know, and the money that you're kindly raising for us tonight will go a long way to help in those types of services. Conscious of time, so I'm not going to go into all of that. Just please, if you take anything away, there is a safeguarding protocol, so if you have concerns over people, please just have a conversation. Worst thing people always say to me is, I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. Better to say something and cock it up a little bit than say nothing and that opportunity's gone. So I always have that difficult conversation. You know. There is something called the National Referral Mechanism. The agencies on this slide, police, local authorities, there are some local Kent charities, so Migrant Help and the Dow Trust, if any of you have heard of those. National crime agencies, Bernardo's, NSPCC, all of the above. You can feed into it. You know, it's useful to know there are local.